Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach. This is the first day of Unleavened Bread, and we are just rejoicing in His goodness and His mercy for His deliverance. This is the time of His deliverance, His redemption of His people, and Rivkah and I shared a Passover meal last night with our prayer center. And we had a pretty good turnout. About 20 people came, and it was a delightful time. People at the end of it, some were talking about just the unity that was there amongst the brethren, and another person was talking about how they went to three different, or this was their third Passover meal, and he was saying just how relaxing that it was. It wasn't, basically what he was really saying, there wasn't any religiosity in it where you had to say a blessing at this particular time, and I'm not against that. I'm not against proper order. In fact, that's what the Seder means, is order. But it was just a relaxing time, and I was thinking about how Messiah reclined at the table with his disciples. And it was a relaxing time for him. Maybe not the night of the Passover or the Last Supper, but the times that he did dine with his disciples, it was it's supposed to be a relaxing time. And so overall, it was very good. And as a matter of fact, it's our pastor, Anne-Marie, she talked about, Pastor Anne-Marie McQueen, she interjected in things throughout, and it was really good. And as Rivkah and I shared with the people, you could just see that, just the excitement and the unity that were on the people's faces. So a really good Passover meal last night. And then, towards the end, I began sharing a little bit about when the blood of the Lamb is applied to the doorposts of our hearts. The blood of the Lamb is applied before the deliverance comes, and that's something that's important because, first of all, we have to believe that the blood is going to cause the death angel to pass over us. And then secondly, we must obey, put to action what we believe, and actually apply the blood in order for us to be delivered from the death. And so I think that's a realization that if we stop and really think that that's what he has called us to do, is to remember that he brings the deliverance, yet we are responsible for fleeing from evil. So they had to make haste that night to get out of Egypt. They had to make haste to eat their meal in haste and be prepared to flee from the evil that they were in bondage to. And so that is a testament of our lives today, that Messiah, through his blood, provides the way open, as I began to describe, talking about Andre and his website, hallelujah.net, and his understanding of the Paleo Hebrew, and the letter Pesach, the letter P, is actually an opening, kind of like as an I, and really that is referring to Passover, or Pesach is referring to the opening of the way to life. And we see that as with circumcision. We also see that as with a date palm tree. A date palm tree is considered in the ancient times, and still is, the tree of life, because it contains all the nutrients, even perhaps quenching your thirst. If you're traveling through the desert, you take some of those. It provides the nutrients that you need to survive until you get to where you're going. So that's a classic picture, of what Messiah did, because in the date palm, you have the dead fronds or the palm leaves that come down over, and they fall, and they don't fall, but they bend over and they fold up at the bottom, and as it builds up, those dead leaves actually provide a habitation for snakes and for all sorts of insects and spiders and things, and that is a representation of death, of sin, which leads to death. It blocks the way of life because it's thorny, and you would have to get up and climb the tree, cut all that stuff off with a machete in order to be able to get to the date palm or to the fruit. And so that's what we see now, that Messiah came and he went through the sacrifice, even shedding his blood. And I'm sure it's that process of tearing those palm branches off, the dead ones they're very sharp and they're very deadly. And so there's pain and there's sacrifice of clearing that off so you and I can make our way up into the tree of life and partake of the fruit. And so he made a way for us to go. And as I was sharing that last night, I began thinking about us fleeing from evil and fleeing from what he is delivering us from, going out of Egypt and making our journey along the way to the promised land. That is our destination, is the promised land, is the place that he has prepared for us. But there's a journey that's involved. That's the journey. That's the burial process. You have the death process, the setting us free of sin. Then you have the burial, the time. Messiah did a lot of traveling and journeying during that time because he went into the earth. And he made rescue those that were in paradise. And he took back the authority, the keys of death, hell, and the grave. He took back that authority back into himself, which that is another podcast for another time. And then, on the third day, which is tomorrow, first fruits, powerful that he will be raised from the dead, and he will take with him those that he rescued. And so as the children of Israel fleeing and they're crossing over on the other side, they were able to cross over, and now they begin their journey. So there's a process of freedom. And in the process of freedom, there begins a journey to our homeland. And in that journey, we need to be together. They came out as the children of Israel as a unified assembly, and it's imperative to remain in unity and to be able to get to where we are going, to lift one another up, to cause one another to be lifted up, and to be cheerleaders for one another. And that's what Shaul did with Timothy. It talks about, and you can look up these scriptures yourself, but 2 Corinthians 11:22 through 30 talks about the dangers and things that Shaul went through in his journey in this life, and what he laid down, what he sacrificed for the kingdom. And then in 2 Timothy 2:3 through 5, he's talking to Timothy about suffering hardship as a good soldier. And then he continues on all through chapter 4. The most important thing to him was his cloak, and he says especially his parchments or his books that he had written. And he's given instruction to Timothy to watch out for those that are enemies of the stake. That's in Philippians 3. But he's given instructions to Timothy, and he's encouraging. He says, my time is over. I've been poured out like water, like they would do at the water libation ceremony. And the high priest, they would pour out the water on the ground. And, Shaul was talking about himself being poured out, as an offering and everything. Well, let me just go ahead and read that one verse here. he's given instruction to Timothy. He said, 2 Timothy 4:6, for I'm already being poured out, and the time of my departure has arrived. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have guarded the belief. For the rest, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Master, the righteous judge, shall give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all those loving his appearing. So he was ready to meet. It was said to him of him that he ran to his executioner. He was ready to see the face of Messiah for the completion, as it says in 1 Corinthians 13, of everything that he has believed, the faith, the prophecies, everything will fall away when he sees him face to face and come into completion to receive his crown of righteousness. And that is the land that we are seeking. That is the home, to receive that reward in the end for our faithfulness here on this earth. So just want to encourage you on this first day of Unleavened Bread. Enjoy your week. Eat the bread of unleavened lifestyle. The lifestyle of Messiah is an unleavened lifestyle. So go forth in his name. Be blessed. And shalom to each of you. We thank Father for each of you. Blessings and joy.